We're about to talk about TTT Compete, our online training program, formerly known as The Design. We're going to break down why we changed the name. We're going to talk about training in our next cycle that ends in a competition called Winter is Coming. And I got Mike, Brandon, and Mia here to tell me things about the training.
That's good, yeah.
New cycles in our online training programs, TTT Compete and TTT Fitness, start Monday, October 25th. Sign up before October 31st to save 20%. Head to trainingthinktank.com for more details.
Yeah, can I just say that I get super excited about doing these. We put in a lot of work to build these programs, and then it's like comes down to the moment on video where we get to talk about
Christmas
it.
morning for Mike.
TTT Compete and both of you wearing design shirts.
I actually thought about that before, but you're the one who said that we're not going to get TTT Compete shirts. We're like, oh, it'll just be TTT.
TTT shirt. All you need is a TTT. Look, he had one.
He's got an octopus shirt.
I wore the
But
right
they
thing.
can't see his shirt because the camera, right?
It's all right. You know, this is the last time that we're displaying it because it's death of the design. I'm going to burn the, actually, I'm going to give them to charity so it doesn't get
burn them. Like the design did something to you.
Yeah. Well, for everyone that doesn't know, we are rebranding. We got sick of the consonant-only name design, so we're moving to make it a little bit more straightforward. TTT Compete is our online program for people that want to compete in the sport of CrossFit. TTT Fitness is our online program for general fitness training, which we're not going to talk about in this video. We're going to talk about the next cycle of TTT Compete, which was The Design, which is now dead.
But I still wear the shirt.
Yeah, but I still love the program and the community. So big picture, it kind of feels like we've been in a relatively long off season, but now as we get closer to the end of the year, there's one more training cycle that takes us to the end of the year, which is what we're going to talk about right now. And then open prep starts right after that. So there's really only two significant training cycles left to get ready for next year's open. And I think now is kind of the time that if people are teetering and are like, oh, I'm going to compete, if you really wanted to make a commitment, now would be a better time than just the 10 weeks right before the open starts.
We actually kind of call this the open prep cycle, and then the open peak is like the start of the new year. It's like, I mean, that's really kind of what it is. We're not labeling that, but
I was like, how come I didn't know that?
No, I mean, like, but in reality, like prep starts now, you know, and then peak is like after the start of the year because you don't have that long.
Well, I mean, we've all done it, I'm sure, in the past, and I know people that are like waiting until January and they're like, oh, now I got to get ready for the open. It's like, no. That's not how it works. Like, you need to build a nice base in the off season, and this is a perfect time to start that.
Yeah. You got to be consistent for a long time to be good at anything. CrossFit is no different. It might be even just more amplified that you have to put the time in to get all the skills.
Well, yeah, especially with how many skills now have been tested in the open. And like, if you make it to quarterfinals now with GHDs and rope climbs and all these other things, you better get good at now.
I love it. I love the introduction of those movements because it just made it feel a little more rounded, you know, like we were doing the same like 12 movements or whatever all the time.
You had to actually display a higher level of movement and fitness to be good at it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's pretty
so
cool.
Where are we going? What changes we got for this cycle?
The big picture for this training cycle is we're actually adding a couple options into our RX program. So in Masters, for those that have been following that program, or if you are a Master and you're looking for a new program, we have two options each day. One is our typical, like our normal Masters RX program. So that's basically the normal training for the day at a higher volume than probably maybe an average Master, for those that want to be competitive. Then we have option 2 each day, which is really our kind of skill building or volume building option. So for those that are either working on, let's say, handstand push-ups, muscle-ups, rope climbs, GHD, since we talked about those, or they just don't want the intensity of a normal training session, they would do option 2. And the nice thing about it is people go back and forth. So maybe on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, I'm doing option 1, which is our like intense option.
Yeah.
And then Tuesdays and Saturdays, I do option 2 because I want to focus on the skills. And we've kept those pretty linear. So like maybe Tuesdays, I'm working on handstand push-ups each week. That gives them the option, if they don't have good handstand push-ups, to work on that every single week.
Yeah, they can like fluctuate back and forth between the two as needed.
So what we want to do in the RX path is the exact same thing. Essentially, there will be the
There would be.
It's like Chris last week on the podcast. You're like, bang, bang, bang. He did it again. Sorry. There will be our normal RX option, which is a hard training session. It's for those that really do want to be competitive and kind of push the boundaries of the quarterfinals, trying to make it even into semifinals for those that are kind of thinking about where they should fit into the program. There are high volume muscle ups, high volume handstand push-ups. You have to have all the skills, rope climbs, GHDs, handstand walking, basically kind of
lots of high percentage
everything.
strength work.
Right.
It's one very challenging training session in the day to prepare you for the sport.
Absolutely. Our second option will kind of mimic what we do in the master's program, but for an RX level athlete. So for those that are 34 and under, that can still handle some of the volume that we throw in the RX path, but it's going to be more skill focused. So instead of let's say the workout has 80 chest to bars in the normal workout, which is a ton for a day, maybe it's an EMOM format where now it's like, hey, we're focusing under a non-fatigue state on how fast you can do butterfly pull-ups or how fast you can do front squats or handstand push-ups, whatever it may be. And then the EMOM or intervals under like a less fatigue, rest is needed setting also allow you to be able to build the volume tolerance that's needed when the open peaking cycle does come around, because we saw, again, going back to that GHD rope climb workout, like people had to do 180 GHDs, but just jumping into a metcon right now and doing 180 is probably not wise for most people. But if we do it in the EMOM format or rest is needed format, you can build the volume resiliency that's needed so that you can do that when the open comes.
Yeah. Sometimes people, I think they might buck back at the concept of looking at it like a hard day and an easy day. And it's not necessarily just a hard day and an easy day. The structure of having rest and a different intention on the training actually allows you sometimes to get a better training stimulus on certain things. So just to use myself as an example, if there's a workout and it's 5 rounds for time of 15 strict handstand push-ups and 20 GHD sit-ups, and there's a cap on it, I'm going to get through the workout. I'm probably at some point, I'm going to hit failure on strict handstand push-ups, and I'm just going to be standing there and I'll get time capped. Let's say I get through 2.5 rounds. So I do like 35 to 40 strict handstand push-ups. That format for me might not actually be an optimal training session, even though I'm an RX athlete. So if it's moved then into, here's an EMOM or here's intervals of it, I can actually accumulate the reps that I'm trying to at the speed that I'm trying to do it at. And because I'm right now, 6 months away from the open, I can actually build more technical skills and more resilience in the movement. So that way, when I get closer to season, I actually can maybe jump in and do the full version. So sometimes being aware of that type of thing, that the options could be used to benefit your training and give you longevity, is a better way to look at it than it's like solely a deload or an easier.
Well, to your example, you may only get 35 handstand push-ups in the metcon, but you may be able to get that 60 or 70 that you want to get. So the volume actually could be even higher, but it's at a skill oriented level as opposed to it just being, hey, crush your head into the wall where you're doing singles or, like you said, standing there.
Yeah.
So, oh, go ahead.
No.
Right. We're doing similar changes with the strength in there too. Right. So on that other option, you're going to have more controlled percentages or lowered percentages with some of the higher end strength work, because we've seen the same thing happen. Like people that are non-volume tolerant, we have people that are non-high percentage strength tolerant, right? So they don't operate well working above 85 to 90% frequently through the week, versus some people need that level of intensity to keep getting stronger, and they respond to it very well. A lot of other people like me, like I need 75 to 80% consistently, and I would say that's higher volume.
Like we could use each other as examples of that. I would need the higher percentages, whereas you would do maybe that 75%, and you would thrive there, and I would thrive more at the 85 or 90%.
It does two things. One, it obviously keeps me healthy and allows me to accumulate better strength through the week, but it also conserves my energy so I can put more energy into what's priority for me, which is the CrossFit. Because if I'm doing super high strength work, super high percentage strength work, and then trying to hit full CrossFit volume, which is necessary for me, I'm not making it every day in the week.
Yeah.
One of the things that we didn't even talk about before this video that we added to this cycle is we also created an onboarding education where some of these concepts of like longevity and training, knowing the difference between training and competing. These are all things that over the course of a decade of working with athletes on an individual level, we realize are important. Taking those principles and figuring out how to build them into a group program has kind of been the mission. And I think this is what we're trying to do, is we're trying to provide the education so that you can have longevity, so that you can enjoy it, so that you can avoid, programming hopping or whatever the things are that stop people from being consistent. Because that's really, from my perspective, if you evaluate 99 of 100 people and say, hey, why'd you stop getting better? It could really be reduced down to simply not being consistent on either the training or the recovery side of the equation. So this option, I think, is our tool for trying to figure out, in a group structure, if somebody has a really hard day or, there was a tough workout, like we had some workouts in the last cycle that just were super challenging on people's low backs, that by the time they got to the next week, they were still sore. So I'd be having conversations with them in the water cooler or just in the comments, but they would be able to now make some of their own corrections on the fly and be like, hey, I might not be ready for this intensity because still not fully recovered from last Friday, but I can still build skills and I have an option to get high quality training in. So I think the options and our educational program will hopefully allow people to keep getting better.
Just
Hold on.
What happened?
Start again. Chili Willy went down.
No,
I was
you had my heart.
I know. I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
Oh shit. Well played. Well, you asshole.
So we're calling it the Chili Willy course. No,
Before you go to that with the onboarding course, just real quick, everyone that's already in the program, will also receive that.
Yeah.
It's not just people that are just coming on. So everyone that is already in the program, that will be sent to you as well.
You'll get it, but it's still going to drip one lesson every week. We put a lot of like additional stuff for people to go through. And I think just getting the information dripped over a period of time can be better for just retaining it and actually putting it into practice.
Yeah, not burning out like we're talking about with training.
Yeah, I do that with intellectual concepts.
Binge watch all of it.
Yeah. It's like you go into a rabbit hole and then you come out and you're like, my brain's fried.
If there's a high enough
demand,
if there's a high enough demand for binge watchers, like they want to watch all the episodes right away, are we going to allow it?
They'll have to fight me for it.
No. God, don't
They'll
do
have
it.
to convince me that
It's
it makes
that
sense.
good. It's that good. Yeah. All right. What's the next change?
So strength.
Oh yeah. All right. So we have the RX options. I mentioned a little bit about how we make changes with those options with the strength work, but last cycle we did kind of like a chaos phase, if you will. It was the strength had progressions, but there was like 5 days that were kind of periodically changed throughout the week of when they showed up. We're going back to a pretty consistent structure this cycle, on Mondays being snatch and back squat progressions, Tuesdays being upper body strength work, Wednesdays being some pulling, hinging endurance, power clean, power snatch development, Friday being front squat strength endurance, and then Saturday throwdown, and then just some Olympic lifting percentage work, touches, and some strength work to round out the week. So some of the progressions that we're going to build on, we're going to hit heavy snatches on Monday, but it's going to be in complex formats this time. So we're going to be doing like high volume complexes and then progressing that over a period of like 6 weeks. So like working grip endurance, working time under tension with the overhead squat, working hang snatch development, and then back squat progressions will be linear on that Monday. Tuesday is going to kind of vary. So we'll have a focus on, if one day is upper body pressing absolute strength work, then it's going to be pulling endurance. And then the next week it will flip. It'll be upper body pulling absolute strength and then pressing endurance. And we'll kind of cycle that over the course of the 6 weeks to make sure you're getting touches on all those qualities while still keeping kind of like a CrossFit touch to some of the strength work. Like, one heavy strict pull up into 10 touch and go push jerks, 3 sets of that as an example. Wednesdays, we're going to have 5 progressions of power clean development. So working different positions.
5 progressions.
Yeah. 5 weeks of it.
5 weeks.
Yeah. Sorry.
I was like, that's a lot of
different
progressions.
ones. Yeah. It's going to be A, B, C, D, E.
Better.
Really working on that power clean. No, we'll have 5 weeks worth of progressions working on developing 1 rep max power clean this cycle, just as a specific lift to get better. And then we're going to vary kind of a similar pattern of front squat and deadlift. So Wednesdays will be, if 1 week is really heavy deadlifting, next week would be more endurance focused, and we'll do that for 2 weeks, and then we'll have it in a metcon. And then the same thing for Friday. We'll have heavy front squat work and do like an endurance touch for 2 weeks, and then we'll have it in a metcon. And we'll do that for 2 cycles repeated. So that's about 6 weeks of work. So you're getting a mix of hitting some heavy 1RM development on the hinging and the front squatting, but you're also maintaining good strength endurance touches for things like the deadlift box jump workout or deadlift handstand push-up workouts that you see where you have to really cycle that like 275 to 315 range for a high amount of volume. And then same thing for front squat, like heavy 1 rep max development for the front squat, and then high wall ball volume or high thruster volume. You're going to see a lot of those.
Some squat endurance with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. This, Mike kind of went into the strength. I think something that we've seen in the program over the years is that, excuse me, even the RX athletes that are really good and really well skilled still need to get stronger.
Yeah.
So we've kind of felt that the strength progressions almost need to be like the foundation of the program the whole time. We just want to keep people's back squats, snatches, cleans, all going up because it's really a bedrock of the sport.
Yep.
And if your one rep max is here at this level and the metcon goes up to this, you can at least do the workout. Whereas if your one rep max is under the fourth barbell of an interval based workout, you have no ability to finish.
Yeah, think of all the open workouts, this heavy 315-pound squat cleans for males or 315-pound barbell for deadlifts. Like all of those are bottlenecks for most people, but if you're strong enough, at least you can handle the load.
Yeah, I just don't like taking out strength progressions completely out of cycles anymore.
Yeah.
Like calling it maintenance phases, whatever you will. I don't like that. I want to keep the progressions in there so that you're getting stronger year round.
Yeah.
Just how often and how high of a percentage you're operating is up to you on like when you need to back off. If your body is just going through like a rough phase of getting beat up and you need to focus more on metcon, then you can still do like 3x3 at 65% to maintain touches.
Well, now you'll have the options too.
Yeah.
So you could, I don't want to get too complicated with it, but you could mix and match and do option 2 of the strength and then option 1 of just the metcon, which is, I think, one of the benefits of an online program with variation is that people, as they get more evolved with using it, can kind of mix and match to their own needs.
For sure.
Or ask for a consult.
Yeah. So the CrossFit is going to fall in line with what the strength is doing. The really cool thing and Mike, you already alluded to this, but on Wednesdays and Fridays, so for 2 weeks, weeks 1 and 2, Mike is going to be writing deadlift progressions on Wednesdays. And then week 3, we have a deadlift test in the metcon for that CrossFit session. So the first 2 weeks, you won't see any deadlifts in the CrossFit work. It is going to be biased more towards handstand push-ups and a ton of walking lunge work, which you guys will see as that comes up in the next couple of weeks. And then on week 4 and 5, it'll be very similar to that. And then week 6, we'll test again. So essentially it's 2 strength sessions into a CrossFit test, 2 strength sessions into a CrossFit test. And then that will be what the cycle looks like throughout the 8 weeks. And then the same thing is true on Fridays. It will be squatting endurance work for the strength for weeks 1 and 2, and then a test on week 3 in CrossFit. And then weeks 4 and 5, the same thing. And then week 6 will be a test. So it's just a kind of a cool, where we can be a little bit more compatible with the strength progressions that we're using, and then test those things in metcons. And that's kind of the purpose of doing it that way.
Yeah. I think that's kind of an upgraded way of looking at it, because sometimes you fall into, you're writing this program, you have like all your strength stuff laid out, and then you're putting the CrossFit on top of it. But sometimes you could be doing a pretty good amount of strength work and then putting the same patterns and styles into the CrossFit. And then that day just ends up being overwhelming. So now kind of have it a little bit more cohesive might just be better for people to continue to progress and ensure they don't get run down from overloading a specific area.
For sure. Yep. So those will be pretty linear. The rest of the CrossFit structure will have themes, but then it will be more chaotic. And what we mean by that is every Monday won't look the same. It's not going to be like in previous cycles where, hey, Monday is upper body pressing with squatting or something like that. So
they're going to be like, what day is this?
It is funny. I get into this routine where like every Monday I do the same things, and then every Tuesday.
Yeah.
So it won't look like that. But on as far as the themes go, we're going to have one day where it's upper body pulling endurance, where their combos are different than what you've seen in the past. So like we're going to do some more fun things. Like they're going to be doing banded curls into rope climbs into chest to bars, or they're going to do chest to bars into rope climbs, into toes to bar into rope climbs. So there's these different fatigue pathways that they'll touch in the CrossFit part of the program.
Bicep curls into rope climbs is so hard.
It is really
I don't know
hard.
if you guys have done a couple of that, but it's impossible.
Hold on. Rope climbs are hard.
Yeah.
You don't
general,
need, or at least for me, there's no
waivers?
Well, yeah.
We have waivers. Yeah.
Yes, we do.
One of the other variations that actually 𝐚𝐜𝐼 helped us come up with is we're going to do some different variations of wrist curls. So there'll be like some supinated ones. If you can imagine like holding a barbell and doing supinated wrist curls, pronated wrist curls, different, both with extension and flexion, into maybe some other grip endurance work. So maybe it's just holding a barbell some weeks. Maybe it's doing chest to bars.
So
or
get
toes to
your
bars.
soft mats out. Put them underneath your ropes and your pull-up bars.
I've been playing around, this is nothing about the Compete program, but playing around with protocols like that for my wrist and grip strength. It makes an amazing difference if you get more endurance in your hands. Sometimes I'll be climbing the rope and I'm like, oh, this is what really fit people feel like, how they're like super connected to it, where they don't feel like they're slipping off. That only lasts me for a couple rope climbs, but
better than none.
Yeah. But it's super helpful to do some isolated work there.
I'm fit.
Oh, no, not anymore.
And then the last thing will be our normal grip endurance style works, where it's just barbell mixed with 1 week will be gymnastics pulling, the next week will be gymnastics pressing, and those will alternate, basically just so we're getting touches on all the things that may come out in the open. You got to keep in mind, again, this is our kind of second to last cycle leading into the open time. So making sure that everyone's prepared for those things is important.
What's the grippiest open workout you've ever done?
The grippiest, the power snatch bar muscle up. Yeah,
really?
That was just
I didn't even do
brutal.
that, but
What about the dumbbell lunge? Toe to bar,
Oh, that
bar
is
muscle
true.
up?
That ruined me. I couldn't do bar muscle ups, and it's weird because like just holding the dumbbells like this was messing me up.
Mia's over here. No one knows.
Hi, Mia.
No one knows because she's been quiet. And the first thing I heard from her is her laughing at me because I said this is the grippiest workout and I didn't do it.
Very maxed.
It's my style.
Yeah.
If you get feedback from all of the athletes and they're all saying it's grippy, and then you like, oh, but if I did it, I only do 3 rounds. It wouldn't be my grip.
My heart.
Yeah, my heart. Exactly. Tell us about the intermediate path and make yourself useful, Mia.
Wow. Thanks, Max.
You're always useful, Mia.
Thanks, Brandon. So for those of you who are new to this, to the program, the intermediate path is our developmental path. So it's not a scaled path. We don't just take the programming and scale it back. It is reflective of the RX program in many ways, but the purpose is skill development. I don't know whether to look at that camera or at you guys.
You do.
I'm gonna look at you guys. So we want you to develop the skills so that you can become an RX athlete, compete in the open, and ideally just be able to get into the RX path. The goal isn't to keep you in the intermediate path forever.
Yeah,
So
and develop to potentially make it to stage 2.
And the
Yes.
focus
Yeah.
are the skills that
Yes.
are basically most challenging that stop people from being RX.
right, which is usually gymnastic skills.
Yeah.
The strength work is very similar to the RX path. Like you guys said, RX or intermediate, everyone needs to get stronger. So that is pretty linear across for those paths, but skill development is the major difference. So last cycle, we started the 3 categories of skill development, which were pure skill development, a density of a skill, and then endurance of a movement pattern. And we're continuing that this cycle. So if you were in last cycle, then you know what,
You know what?
yep.
You know what?
you know what I'm talking about when it comes to the 3 different categories. But
Yeah.
so what we're going to do this cycle is for pure skill, we're working on bar muscle up. So by pure skill, I mean, we're working on developing the bar muscle up, whether you have one or not. And there will always be 2 options. So if you have bar muscle ups, our goal is to become more efficient at them. How can we make your bar muscle ups better so that it will translate into more endurance in a workout?
Yeah, I'm
So
looking
give me
at
an-
looking at a day right now. Like option 1, accumulate 10 reps, jump to pike without a box, accumulate 12 to 24 reps, doubles of 3/4 toe to bar into a bar muscle up. And like the skills there are still building positions. And then option 2, 15 minutes progressing through bar muscle up, swing steps, jump to pike, tighten patient arch, toe rise. That's like very developmental, and like
Right.
those are gonna be the
Right.
more simpler ones if you're just kind of learning the skill originally.
Right. So it's basically option 1, you have bar muscle ups
Yeah.
and we're working on improving them. Option 2 is you do not have bar muscle ups and we're working towards getting yours. And we did this last cycle with ring muscle ups. Then the next category is density. So we did this with kipping handstand push-ups last cycle, and now we're doing toes to bar. So if you were in last cycle, it's going to look really similar to the toes to bar. The goal is you see a toes to bar set in a workout. Maybe it's 50, maybe it's 100, maybe it's rounds for time and it sets of 15. And I want you to know I can do sets of 5 with an 8-second rest, or I can do a set of 10, rest 10 seconds, set of 5, or if it's 50, I'm going to go 10s and I can hold this rest interval. So we do progressions so that it's really serves 2 purposes. 1 is we're building your toes to bar endurance, and 2 is we're learning how to handle toes to bar in workouts. So
And in one of the courses I talked about in the beginner stages of development, you have like the technical side, which is kind of what you explained of like, jumping into pike, getting your positions. And then you have like the tactical is now how do you race with it? You can do some
Right.
toes to bar, but now this workout comes out, and that's
Right.
kind of what I think you're training by doing that is you're teaching people how, with their current level of fitness, how to navigate a fitness test in the fastest and most efficient way for them.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in the stage of developing my gymnastics, which I still am, but in earlier stages, I would do an open workout with, say, 12 ring muscle ups, and I'd do them in singles. And afterwards, I'm like, oh, well, now I know that I should have set a 20-second rest in between, and that would have been faster. I want athletes to know that before you do the workout.
Right.
So
Like
that's
know
the
their
purpose.
capacity and things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the purpose of that piece. And then the third piece is a movement pattern, endurance. So last cycle we did inversion, handstand walk, or just being upside down, lots of wall walks, lots of positional work upside down. And then this cycle we are doing strict handstand push-ups, or a version of pressing inverted. So there'll be option 1 and option 2 for that as well, based on if you have strict handstand push-ups or if you don't. And then if you don't, we're developing strict handstand push-up strength, but it's not necessarily just like the skill of strict handstand push-ups, because that's kind of a weird skill where you
kind of
it's not really skill work.
It's
You just have to build the strength for it. So there'll be 2 options in that as well, to build your pressing endurance.
So one of the questions that we get all the time are from RX athletes or from masters athletes. I hope not from elite athletes. If they're asking this, they shouldn't be in the elite path.
I probably get them.
Yeah. Hey, I don't have one of the skills that's tested every single week, like handstand push-ups or muscle ups. I have everything else. What should I do? My answer to that would be, look at what Mia is writing in the intermediate path. And then on those days, because we try to match everything up for the most part, then go to the intermediate path and do that skill so that you can learn or develop the skills needed for either option if you're masters or RX.
I have 2 things. One, Mike had to just let his ears out, and I didn't take it off.
I didn't take it off.
He's like, it's too hot.
And then that made me lose my train of thought on number 2. What were you just saying?
Just that if you are missing one skill, it's a really, I think the big picture for what we do and now TTT Compete is we have options. Like that's why we keep saying this for every level of athlete that wants to be competitive. So if you don't have certain skills, the intermediate path is perfect for that.
Yeah.
If you have all the skills but one, you can do RX or masters depending on which division you're in, and then move down the intermediate for that one skill. If you're elite, then obviously, and you're going to talk about that in a second, but there are all these options at your disposal. You just need to either ask the questions of what you should be doing or play around with the app. Like go through, look at all the divisions, figure out which one you should be doing. And if you're in the right one, you're going to make progress.
Yeah. I think the big thing is when you sign up for it, that you get access to everything that we're talking about. And as we go through this video, I'm like, man, we got a lot of options. In reality, it should be very simple for you, because it says elite, peak for semifinal, quarterfinals, RX, compete for quarterfinals, intermediate, peak for the open. So you kind of have some sort of an understanding where you're going to finish. And that's kind of the main body of what you're paying attention to. There shouldn't be, like, you shouldn't be in the intermediate path and then be cherry picking workouts from the elite path.
Right.
But if you are in one of those paths, like you're in the RX path and there's, one skill or 2 skills that you're not good at, you have access to a ton of skill development resources that blend through the whole cycle in the intermediate. So you can kind of follow your main path or learn how to mix and match for yourself in a more effective way.
And skill developments that like have been proven to work. I don't know how many people I've seen that's come into the program and say, I don't have muscle ups. And then after going through a cycle, they get muscle ups or handstand push-ups or whatever else it may be, because they're dedicated to following those skill programs.
I got to give props to Mia too. I know it's taken 55 years for her to get better at it, but her skill progressions really have improved her gymnastics.
Yeah, gymnastics are really good.
Hey, but you won the wall walk. Oh wait, I can't say anything yet.
Oh yeah.
Well, no, it'll be out by the time this
and I got no reps. I got retroactively
Max
no
hasn't
reps.
finished the workout yet.
Yeah, he's still going. It's like 7 days later.
I was smiling when you were talking about the paths, because I was thinking in my head, I was like, man, it'd be fun. Mike, peak for Thanksgiving.
I'm definitely doing
my
that.
path.
That'd be nice.
All right, elite.
Elite path. So the model of CrossFit is pretty much exactly what Brandon laid out for the RX path. The model of strength is pretty much exactly what Mike laid out. The only difference is that we're splitting these into multiple sessions, and we made some changes to the strength. We put some accessory joint support stuff in there just because training at the elite level in this sport is just so hard. There's so many compounding movements on every single joint. So we just put some additional maintenance work in there to give people ideas. It might not necessarily be enough. You might have to do more of that on your own, but we put some kind of bodybuilding-esque stuff in there. We also put some regimented progressions in on the movements that happen in person, sleds, peg boards, that type of stuff that is not necessarily ever going to show up in the open and most likely not in quarterfinals. But if we truly are peaking for semifinals, we can't go all year without training that stuff and then throw it in. So those would be the additions to the strength. CrossFit will be relatively similar to the structure. And then the big change would be the endurance of this training cycle. So there will be one swim progression. There's 2 run bike progressions. So we're running and doing C2 bike. One of those is focused on priority running, so running at speed with active recovery biking. And the other is a progression that we came up with after some discussions Kyle Ruth wrote, where you're doing bike progressions at intensity and you're learning how to train your maximum recoverable run pace, which is what we think is one of the very important things at in-person competitions. If there's a 4 rounds for time, run 400 meters and then do all this other really hard shit, you're not really, for the most part, able to push the run at max effort to get into all that really other hard stuff. But you have to do the hard stuff really fast. So the fastest that you can run while recovering from the hard work is really one of the key variables of being a good runner in a CrossFit setting.
Would you say like the Mac workout that had the muscle ups and wall balls was a good example of that?
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like the separator was those that were able to get on and hold a respectable pace, and I don't mean that in like a derogatory way, versus those that got on and were like jogging, hanging out, shuffling.
Yeah, and
their recoverable pace after those movements was very, very low.
Yeah, they're not necessarily, even the winners aren't necessarily running fast. No. They're just running faster while recovering to go back to do the work. So we created a progression that is specifically trying to improve that maximal recoverable run pace. Then we have 2 other sessions, an echo bike and a row session. And the structure of that is basically opposite on opposite days. So one day you're sprinting on one to improve peak power, and the other one you're doing intervals on, and vice versa on the other day. So it's a relatively broad and comprehensive program to build endurance. We laid some, for the people that are in the program that have been following, we were doing run progressions in the end of this cycle. And people are like, why are we doing all this easy work? Why are we doing all these drills? Is because we found when we go and we start ramping run volume up really quick in people without building a base, their bodies just break down. So for the people that are in the program already, we kind of gave you a couple weeks of preparatory stuff to get ready for this. For the people that are going to be jumping into the elite path, we're going to be putting some guidelines and parameters and notes and give you some idea. The volume to start might not be off the charts high, but it might be something to take into consideration that you just want to be mindful of whether or not you can tolerate doing triples every day for 5 days a week.
And then the last thing for all of the paths is at the end of this cycle, we will have.
Hold on, you didn't do masters.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Sorry.
You got excited.
Pause. Hold. What's next with masters?
Masters will be keeping.
Tell me what I'm doing with my training now.
Are you going to do it with me?
I'll do.
Hold on, I'm a master athlete.
It doesn't matter.
What do you mean?
3 of us writers in this program now are masters athletes.
I do what I ask the masters to do. That's all I will say.
Okay, but you have to do that 5 years from now.
Deal. 32 next on Saturday, actually.
Get out of here. You can't train with us.
So masters,
can't train with us.
Go away.
Get off this.
You're not welcome.
Mute this guy's mic.
Whippersnapper.
Masters will follow the same template as RX, and we'll continue on with the same options that we have. Obviously, some of the CrossFit work is modified to what the needs of masters athletes are, especially when we're looking at the age group qualifier. Our end goal for everyone is to qualify for the age group qualifier. So if you're in the masters program, that is the goal, is to get you into the top 10% to move on to the age group qualifier. And if that's the case, we also need to prepare for those things. So you still see things like GHDs or ab mat sit-ups for 55 plus, box step-ups with a med ball for 55 plus versus maybe it's pistols for everyone else, but you're going to be touching those things. Outside of that, the template will look like option 1 is going to be our normal day, which the strength work is very similar to RX. there's some modifications to the CrossFit. And then option 2 will be our skill building, where we're still doing things like chest to bars, pistols, rope climbs, all the things they need to prepare for, but it's more in a skill oriented session.
Same concept as we already explained in the RX that you've already been doing with people in the Masters for the whole cycle.
And they've taken advantage of it. It's really cool to see, even those that maybe are thriving with just the regular program, if they don't feel great one day, they move to option 2, which is a really good thing to do to make sure that they can have longevity in the program.
Beautiful. Now you can jump.
Yes, I know. I was so excited about it. So now the last thing.
And finally,
at the end of this cycle, we will have our second annual Winter is Coming Classic. Ooh. I'm really excited for that. Or as Max says, the Winter is Classic.
The Winter is Classic coming.
I can't wait to film those videos.
The Winter is Competition Classic coming.
The workouts have been written.
Oh, baby.
And all we have to do is film all of the videos for that. And then I'm excited to release those.
They're awesome.
Yeah.
I'm super pumped.
Yeah. The competition will be cool. Some changes, or I guess why we do it. We found like over the years that everybody would kind of disengage close to the holidays, and it would almost be like a stressful time of the year where you'd get programming written and then be like, oh, I was with my family, I couldn't do this. And it was just creating so much unnecessary tension. So what we decided to do, almost spur of the moment, was, hey, let's do a competition so everyone can put all of their training resources into something right before the holiday kicks, and then use the holiday as kind of a deload mental reset before we start training for the Open.
Yep.
And it was really successful, I think, for like the coaches' mindsets, the athletes' mindsets, having some fun at the end of the year. So that was kind of the purpose of creating the competition. We're also going to do some prizes and some prize money this year, but stay tuned for details on that.
So the dates on that, just so that everyone is aware, is December 18th and 19th. So it's quite literally the last 2 days of that training cycle. So when we start this, the 8th week of that will be the Winter is Coming Classic.
Yeah. And then does the end of is that technically the end of the training cycle when we do a bridge one?
Yeah. So that will be the end of this training cycle. And then we'll have 2 weeks, just like we did last year. For those that are OGs that were in the program last year, we still will be doing normal training, but it will be slightly adjusted, kind of like a deload week. We call it a speed week or reload week, whatever you want to call it. So it's not easy training, but it's more, hey, we know people are traveling. They're going to be with family over Christmas. Yeah.
Less equipment.
So, right. So the sessions will be a little bit shorter. And then as soon as that's done, we start our open peaking cycle, which will be January 3rd.
Mike has a joke.
It was rolling in my head.
He's like holding it back.
The speedy reload week.
Speedy reload.
Yeah, cool. So I mean, the big changes, just to kind of recap, the addition of having options in RX, Winter is Coming Classic Peak, and then the competitor course that we'll be launching, that all of the current members will get, but then when you sign up, you'll get it on a weekly, basically like a weekly drip basis. So you can avoid your Netflix binge watching.
One of the cool things too that will be uploaded at the same time is we will have a full scaling and modification PDF. So one of the questions that we get is like, hey, I don't have an Echo bike, but I have, whatever, either a Salt bike or a C2 bike or whatever they have. What should I do? Well, this will give you all of the options for that and all of the external loads. So powerlifting, Olympic lifting, any kettlebell options, dumbbell options, and all the gymnastics.
Do you think that is going to make their experience better or not get you the questions?
Hopefully both. I'll put it that way.
All right. Well, that's the new cycle. Yep. Training starts 10:25.
Why did you have to say it that way?
He was like,
I couldn't remember it was 4 or 5. Anyways,
cool. I'm looking right at it and I didn't even say it.
Get off this podcast. All right. Thanks for watching.
See you guys.
Bye.